Well, since we're waiting, I am gonna start my breakfast, and whilst the meeting gets started, I'll pay some attention here.
Thank you, Simon.
Very good.
Enjoy.
Aviva.
We're currently at 5 right now, Lori. Just waiting on 4 more.
Fingers are crossed.
I'm just waiting to hear back from Tara as well. So as soon as I do, I'll let you know.
Perfect. We have been down this road before. There could be a lot of snow blowing happening at the moment.
Okay, we have 7. Getting closer. Got 8.
We have 9 now.
Wonderful.
I think, right, Brittany?
Let me just do a double check here one more time. 1, 2, 3. All the names keep moving around on me. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We're good to go.
Wonderful. Shall we proceed then, Brittany?
We are good to go.
Wonderful. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Grey County Ag Advisory Committee meeting for Wednesday, December 10th, 2025. Thanks for taking the opportunity to attend today, and welcome to anyone that happens to be watching from home. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 9:01. Any declarations of interest for today's meeting? Seeing no raising of hands or anything, if any should arise during the course of the meeting, please declare them at that time. We have no delegations this morning. Did want to mention that we were supposed to have Steve Duff with us for this meeting. He's from OMAFA. We had asked for an ag economic update from someone, and he had agreed to do it, but unfortunately his time is not his own, and he was unable to attend today. So Brittany's going to arrange to have him sometime next year to give that same economic update. We just wanted everyone to hear kind of what farmers are facing economically at these times. We have 4 items of direction or discussion today. First off, cutting of ash and elm trees and removal on roadsides. And Sean Anthony, Operations Manager, Transportation Services, is going to lead us through that discussion. Take it away, Sean.
Sounds good. So I just have maybe a brief overview of what we're doing in operations in terms of dealing with this massive issue. It's not a, I guess, directed plan or anything like that. We have a tree crew that deals with all kinds of hazard tree issues on county right-of-ways, but that inherently covers ash trees as well. So the county runs a tree crew from April to the end of October. That's comprised of 4 staff, a supervisor, a lead hand, and 2 operators. And the purpose of that crew, like I said, is just to remove hazard trees from the travel or from the right of way to protect the traveling public. So in terms of equipment, they have a kind of an all-purpose truck with a space cap on it that houses all of their small tools and stuff like that, pole saws, chainsaws, and PPE and all that kind of stuff. They usually incorporate one of the tandem dump trucks that we have, which has a hopper on it for collecting mulch and all that kind of stuff that results from these activities. They have a Vermeer chipper, 130 horse chipper that they bring along with them. As well, we have 2 skid steers. We just purchased one last year just because of this growing nature of this issue. So each of those skid steers has a brushing head on it as well. In terms of training that we send this crew to, we use Arboriculture Training Canada. And so they'll take the following 2 courses, technical tree felling and hazard tree felling. And that we feel is sets them up for success. Now our operators and stuff like that, our tree crew is not climbing trees and doing what a professional arborist would be doing. All their operations are from the shoulder, the roadside, or the ditches, sort of thing. Where we do need some technical help with some of those more precarious hazard trees and stuff like that, we'll contract that work out to a local arborist. In terms of data collection, we're using Field Maps, which is an Esri app. We've created a deficiency layer where users, so any of our staff can use their phone to drop a deficiency. So not just hazard trees, but they can do potholes and all that kind of stuff on this deficiency app. It's multi-purpose. So if they drop a hazard tree point on the map, they can also add pictures and then set the status of that deficiency to resolved or unresolved. So that was brought in 2024, and it just allows us to keep track of our progress. There's also some optional fields in that app that we've added about tree species and stump removal and all that kind of stuff. So that makes it really easy for our staff. When they go out at the beginning of the season, they can find all these hazard trees, collect that information, and then where we identify that we do need external help, we can really easily just sort through that data and put together a tender that we can put out to market. So since the beginning of 2024, like I said, when this app came online, we've added 542 deficiencies related to tree maintenance, of which 484 have been resolved and 52 remain unresolved, just to give the committee a bit of the scope. So many of these represent multiple trees in one location, so it's not like 542 individual trees. It's just like a point on the map where there might be multiple trees that are issues. So the amount of individual trees requiring maintenance is actually quite a bit higher than 542 over the past 2 seasons. And then just in terms of our operations, in terms of keeping the right of way clear of debris and all of that kind of stuff, in most cases, we'll chip the tops of the trees and take away the mulch and leave it either at one of our yards or various other properties that the county owns. Typically, we'll leave the body wood for firewood scavengers. They seem to do a pretty good job of collecting that on their own. So as long as it's not presenting a safety hazard for the traveling public or anything like that, then we'll just leave the body wood generally. Currently, we're keeping pace, I feel, but not necessarily getting ahead. So obviously ash is presenting an additional challenge in terms of hazard trees. So it's really picked up in the past 20 or so years. So maybe we're slightly getting ahead, especially now that we've been doing a lot more work bundling up these tenders, and we've been putting that out to market on an annual basis and getting a lot more work done that way as well. And then I would just add to that, we've seen commensurate increases with our brushing budget as well, year over year. So that's kind of the summary that I had for the committee today, but happy to take any questions.
Thanks so much, Sean. That was a good start for the discussion. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Sean? Just raise your hand, please, if you do. Simon, I see you unmuted.
Well, thank you very much for this presentation, because it's been on my mind more than once, and I can see it is an immense problem. I think all the staff and so on are doing their utmost to make this all work, and I thank you very kindly on behalf of the public that you have looked into this problem. So that's my comment, not really a question, just a comment.
Wonderful. Thank you, Simon. I'm sure others would agree. Paul, please.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks for the update on that. It's good to know what's happening out there, and the odd time I see them out and about. But the question I have is the bodywood. That's great that it's left there for whoever can make use of it, and I'm sure lots of people can. But sometimes the bodywood or the some of it's too big, and do you circle back? I know sometimes I've seen big chunks of trees still on the side of the road. And I probably you need the roads crew to come back with some equipment as well. But I just wondered if you had a comment there.
Sure, through the chair. Yeah, so our area supervisors, so we've got 4 individual depots throughout the counties or throughout the county, and each area is supervised by an area supervisor. And typically they'll be out patrolling. So if they see anything that looks kind of out of the ordinary, then they'll let the crews know to come back and deal with it. Additionally, all of our patrol staff have chainsaw training, so they can kind of go out and deal with those types of issues individually as well. But yeah, we kind of do a debrief at the end of every season with our tree crew foreman and just go through some of these items and make sure that that's top of mind for them.
And just to follow up on that,
Yeah, Paul.
yeah, some of the stuff I've seen is like probably 3 or 4 feet diameter, like maybe an old tree that's died, and there's like the big trunk, and I'm sure your crew is well trained that there's a certain spot not to cut on an old tree because there's probably fence in there as well, and it'll be a quick way of ruining your day when the chainsaw gets into some wire. But I'm sure you're all trained in that as well, and that's probably why some of that big stuff is left, because of that reasoning and stuff like that. But yeah, no other thing to decide to talk about. Just thanks for the update on that.
Thanks,
Keep up the good
Paul.
work.
Any further comments, Sean, on anything that Paul said?
Yeah, I would just say that it is an ongoing discussion, that it's a lot of these trees are, as you said, they're very technical and present health and safety challenges. So one of the things that we're always discussing is the difficulty for that tree crew foreman to give up the saw and kind of get the rest of the crew gaining those same levels of skills. But generally that supervisor is somebody that comes back every single year, and they've got many years of experience cutting trees, so they typically know what they're getting into. But yes, health and safety is always top of mind.
Blair has a question in the chat. How can we help as landowners?
Through the chair. So I guess just it's kind of the same with the weed spraying and stuff like that. So we're limited to what we can do in the right of way, and then anything that extends beyond is kind of it falls outside of our scope. So we really would rely on landowners for doing their share. Wherever we see something that does present a challenge for traveling public or a health and safety concern, but it's on private property, it just sort of extends into the right of way, then we'll get landowner permission to go in and take care of those trees as well. So if they're willing to work with us, then we'll work with them. Perfect.
Paul, you have another comment?
Yeah, just to follow up. Thank you, Madam Chair. With regards to trees that are dying or are dead along hydro lines, do you work fairly closely with hydro? Because obviously that's a technique in itself, because when you're trying to fall those trees, just as a side, I know that a number of years ago there was a dead tree on my dad's farm, and it was obviously dead, and I tried numerous times to get hydro to come out, and if you don't cut it, it's going to fall on the hydro lines type of thing. And it seemed to be like it took a while, and then finally they got it and they came and cut it down. But sometimes they leave a big stalk and they take all the limbs up and they leave it up standing up. But I know that's something that you probably have to work with, because obviously it takes a different kind of training, or sometimes maybe a bucket truck or something like that, or you have to hire somebody else, like you mentioned, a separate contractor in that. But I just wondered how well you work with hydro.
Yeah, that's a great point, and an ongoing challenge. Not having the luxury of a bucket truck or anything like that, we're limited in what we can do. And on top of that, our tree crew is trained, but we don't expect them to do anything that would any sort of work around hydro lines or anything like that. So what they'll do is they'll put that on the app. There's a field on the app where they can indicate that there's a utility present, such as Bell or such as hydro. And then we'll bundle all that up at the beginning or midway through the season or the end of the season, and we'll send it over to the appropriate utility. If their feedback is we're not concerned about it, we're not going to do anything about it at this time, but we feel it's a danger to the traveling public, then generally speaking, that will be one of those ones where we'll bundle it up into a tender and put it out to market for an arborist with a bucket truck to come deal with.
Thanks, Sean.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Sean? Seeing no raised hands. Thanks so much for this update, Sean. I think it was greatly appreciated and very timely. So thank you.
Thank you.
4B, the next items for declaration or items for direction or discussion is the West Grey Hanover boundary adjustment, and Scott Taylor, Director of Planning, is going to give a high-level overview of this item.
Thanks, Chair Smith, and good morning to the committee. I just have a brief presentation I'm going to share with you, so I'll just get my screen shared here and hopefully we'll be off to the races. Can someone just confirm that they can see that slideshow there?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Yeah, pleased to be sharing this news with you. And I will say just at the outset, this presentation was heavily adapted from a presentation that was put together by both West Grey and Hanover staff that they presented at the November 19th public meeting, which was held both in person and virtually from Elmwood in that regard. So we'll just move on to the next slide here. So with respect to some background on this is a project that's been in the works for a few years, and there's been some very dedicated work done by a working group between both West Grey and Hanover. And that working group consisted of each of the two mayors, so Mayor Patterson and Mayor Eccles in that regard, and one additional councillor from each of the municipalities that all sat around a table. It also was comprised of the two CAOs from West Grey and Hanover, and then a whole series of support staff at different times. So the clerks were quite often there taking minutes. At times they needed to pull in technical expertise from the treasurers or other staff in that regard. So you might be asking yourself, what was the county's role here? So the county staff helped facilitate this group and provided technical information where we could assist in that regard. So CAO Schertzer was heavily involved with this group and facilitated the discussions on an as-needed basis. And in the planning department, we helped provide some planning advice and some support and mapping in that regard. So the group has been meeting quite regularly, basically throughout this term of council. And as you may be aware from the press release and some of the links in the agenda, there is a proposed municipal restructuring proposal in place here, and we'll take you through that here in just a second. And so at this stage, both West Grey and Hanover councils have supported in principle what we're calling a mutual prosperity boundary adjustment. So this would see some lands potentially going from the municipality of West Grey into the town of Hanover in that regard. This is a long process, and this is just one of the steps in terms of getting that conditional support. What that conditional support led to from both councils, as I noted, was a joint public meeting that was held in Elmwood on November 19th. Both before the public meeting, at the public meeting, and since the public meeting, we've had lots of comments received from different landowners and some groups in that regard. There's been a mixture of questions, just trying to understand what happens, what the next steps are, and everything else. There's been some that have voiced support for the proposal, and some that have raised some of their concerns with respect to the proposal. So staff at both the municipalities and the counties have been working to answer those questions within those links that were shared on the agenda today. There is a frequently asked questions, and that will have to be a living document and updated from time to time in that regard. So what's being proposed at this stage is a transfer of land of about 1,634 acres at the north end of Hanover and at the east end of Hanover. So these would be lands in the municipality of West Grey that would be potentially shifting their municipal boundaries into the town of Hanover in this regard. I will say that most of these lands that we're talking about are privately owned. So we're not talking about municipal land shifting hands. We're talking about privately owned lands that would go from potentially one municipality into another. And so we just have a map here showing you the lands in question. So what you see obviously to the left there is in the gray is Bruce County and Brockton in that regard. And then we have Hanover and West Grey. It's the lands that are sort of in that wine-colored purple that would be potentially shifting from West Grey to Hanover. And so roughly in the north, it would be the lands to the east of the county land and north, or to the east of the county line, sorry, and to the north of the current Grey Road 28. And then on the east end of Hanover, it would be lands both primarily south of Grey Road 4 and a portion of land to the north of Grey Road 4 there as well, including the former Bucks Crossing golf course in that regard. And I just have a couple air photos to better show you what we're looking at here. And so what you see on the left-hand side of your screen is primarily the north end of the proposal, the north and the east, and what you see on the right-hand side is the eastern end of the proposal. So just from looking at the air photos, you can see there is a mix of land uses there. There's certainly some lands that are heavily treed and naturalized in that regard. There's farmlands included here. There's some individual parcels, particularly in the north end, which might be a mixture of residences or small businesses. And then, as I noted, on the east end here, we have what was the former Bucks Crossing golf course in that regard. And so with respect to the proposal at hand, there's been lots of questions about the financial terms of this agreement. So what's been supported in principle at this stage is that Hanover would provide financial compensation to West Grey. And the reason for this compensation is because if these lands are changing municipal boundaries, then West Grey would be losing some tax assessment in this regard. So the proposed deal at this stage is that Hanover would pay West Grey $10 million, and that would be paid through equal installments of $500,000 a year over a 20-year period in that regard. And so some of the other things to note about this proposal is there's no development proposed at this time. This is a very long-term proposal, and certainly if you go back a couple slides to the 1,634 acres that we showed you, there's the thought that if development happens in these lands, it will be phased in over a number of years. First off, there would need to be infrastructure improvements in terms of the construction and expansion of water and sewer pipes in that regard. There would need to be further planning processes, environmental assessment processes, and so this is a very long-term proposal. This goes beyond what Hanover would need to support their immediate growth needs, but this allows, if it were to be approved, Hanover to plan for their long-term growth future, not just for the next 10 or 20 years, but for decades in that regard. And so at this stage, the planning work hasn't been done in terms of updating official plans or zoning bylaws. It's anticipated longer term that these lands would include a mixture of commercial, industrial, and residential development. We've made it clear throughout the process, or the two municipalities have made it clear throughout the process, there's no obligation for any property owner to develop. So if you're one of those properties and the lands do shift municipalities, as the planning advances on this, you might choose to develop, or you might choose not to. You might choose to simply continue to farm or use your lands as you currently do. And so farming can continue, and you know, one of the key principles in the discussions right from sort of the earliest meetings on this is the importance of farming to Grey County, to West Grey and Hanover in that regard. So everything has been done to try to allow those that wish to continue farming and allow those quality lands to continue in production for as long as the landowners may choose in that regard. With respect to some of the benefits, we've got 3 slides here speaking to the West Grey benefits, the Hanover benefits, and the Grey County benefits. But just prior to going into the details of those slides, one of the things sort of we've noticed as municipal staff, and perhaps some of our politicians would agree with us, was in general, residents or visitors to our community or even businesses don't always know where the current municipal boundaries are. No doubt to municipalities and counties and politicians, these municipal boundaries can be very important. important because they can delineate service areas or where you vote and various things like that. But at the end of the day, you may live in one community, shop in a different community, and work in a third community. And so people are constantly crossing these municipal boundaries in their day-to-day lives, both in a recreational basis and in a professional basis. And so we've tried to look at this through a regional approach and to make sure that there are benefits to all involved, including the landowners and the municipalities and the county in this regard. So with respect to the benefits to West Grey, one of the most obvious ones that we just talked about is the financial compensation. So that would be the $10 million paid over 20 years, and that would make up for some of the loss of assessment in that regard. There would be spin-off benefits from the growth in both the residential and industrial sectors. So picture a new business opens in Hanover, and maybe somebody already living in rural West Grey or even Durham and Neustadt might find a job at that business, and they could drive back and forth to that business. And then there would also be anticipated that there'd be an expansion in services and amenities that again could benefit residents in both municipalities in that regard. With respect to some of the benefits to Hanover more directly, they would, of course, potentially assume new lands for development. And as I said, this development, if it were to be approved, would be phased in over a period of many years. As that development happens, of course, there would be new assessment growth in the town to fund important services and infrastructure in that regard. And then there would be lands for obviously more homes and businesses, and this closely aligns with not only the county official plan in that regard that speaks to sort of long-term availability for growth lands across the county, but also some of our provincial objectives in that regard in terms of helping ease the need for housing and providing meaningful employment to all those across the province, and in this case, more importantly, across Grey County and Hanover and West Grey. And so with respect to the benefits to Grey County, some of them would be similar to those benefits to Hanover. There would, of course, be increased assessment in the county's levy. There would be additional jobs and residences for residents of the South Grey region, and it's really positioning South Grey as a vibrant economic community, and the hope would be that there would be shovel-ready lands for development. And so if we get opportunities with large or small employers, or even some of our existing employers to expand, or the need for more housing, then these would provide sufficient area for some of this growth. With respect to some of the other considerations, obviously, if you're a resident in this area, one of the key considerations would be, what does this mean to my taxes? And so the Hanover tax rate is slightly higher than West Grey's rate now. So one of the things that's been committed to as part of this process would be phasing in any potential tax increase over 5 years. And so if this were to be approved by the province, that tax increase wouldn't hit the landowner all in the same year. If the lands were to shift municipal boundaries, Hanover would provide those municipal services to the land. So that's everything from police and fire and library and parks, but also to some of, over time, the hard infrastructure like extension of water lines and sewer lines in that regard. And so with respect to the next steps on this project, there is a report going to County Committee of the Whole tomorrow, and that is seeking County Council's support for this proposal. There's reports planned at both Hanover Council and West Grey Council on December 15th and 16th, respectively, with respect to the proposed restructuring agreement. And if it's supported by County Council, and if both municipalities opt to sign the agreement, then that would all be sent on to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. So in this case, it's the ministry that has to approve such a boundary change. And should the minister do so, they would issue an order approving that in that regard. If that order were to be received, then the municipalities and the county would work together on the long-term planning for these projects. As I said, there would need to be official plan updates, there would need to be zoning bylaw updates, other environmental assessments in that regard. So it really is a long-term approach. And so, you know, if you picture a few years down the road, if this were to be approved, again, not all the lands would be designated to development right away. It would be done in phases and sort of smaller chunks as Hanover is able to build the infrastructure in that regard and reasonably plan for their long-term future. So that's what I have for today. Maybe just before I turn it back to you, Chair Smith, I would just invite CAO Schertzer if he has any further comments here, just because he has been heavily involved in helping facilitate this process throughout.
Thanks, Scott, and through you, Chair. I think Scott's done an excellent job of summarizing all the work that's been done to date to get it to this stage. It's been a collaborative effort amongst the two municipalities and the county and working through this. And yeah, I think as Scott noted, there's definitely some benefits that we see as part of this. Noting that in terms of the one aspect is relating to farming, both municipalities have indicated throughout this process that, you know, the ability to continue to farm, if the landowners want to continue to farm, they will have the ability and right to do so for as long as they would like to do that. And so that's something that's been recognized and been respected right from day one from the conversations with the two municipalities. And as Scott noted, you know, both municipalities trying to ensure that the mitigating any potential impacts from that tax increase that Scott noted, trying to mitigate that, phasing that in over a 5-year period helps to try to mitigate some of those pieces. So both municipalities, I think, have done a really good job of trying to anticipate what those impacts might be and trying to work out solutions to help mitigate those things. So anyway, so like I said, it's been a collaborative team effort for sure, and it's been a journey, definitely. This is something that County Council supported back in 2020, 2021, recognizing that there's going to be a number of these settlement areas that they're adjacent to neighboring municipalities that we're going to have to work through some of these things, and they do take time. They take time to go through those conversations and discussions and to figure out what makes the most sense and what benefits both municipalities in the end, and in turn the county and the region as a whole. And so this is something that, yeah, we're just moving still through the process, working with the ministry staff to put some further details with respect to what that restructuring order package will look like. So we're working on that with West Grey and Hanover as we speak.
Thank you, Randy, and thank you, Scott, for that update. Are there any questions or comments for Scott or Randy? If so, raise your hand. Shirley?
Thank you, Chair Smith. And I just wanted to share that I found this a really interesting process because I think a lot of us as lower tiers see the potential of perhaps going through this at some point in time. So I'm just curious to know, Randy, in your mind at this point or in the future, does this change of, moving these lands into Hanover's boundaries actually change the appraised value of some of these properties as they now become, potentially available for development? I understand the taxes will increase, and that's just because of Hanover having a different rate. But does the value of these lands actually increase for the owners?
Through you, Chair, a great question, Councillor Keaveney. I think what we've seen in the past is where there may be a valuation change in terms of a property is when we get into the actual official plan designation and zoning changes for properties and lands. And as Scott noted, that would be one of the next steps. If the minister does approve, if the councils approve this, and then the ministers approve the restructuring order, one of the next steps would be to actually designate and zone those lands. That's when we've seen that the property values then tend to increase in terms of the potential valuation, because then the best use of that property changes potentially in terms of the use of those lands. So that's when we see that there's a change in terms of property values, based on just our experience in the past dealing with appraisals and when that trigger happens with respect to actually official plan designation zoning changes.
Thank you, Randy. Anyone else have any comments or questions? Simon, please.
You do have two in the chat there, Lori. You want to deal with those first, or?
I'm not seeing any new ones in the chat.
Okay. Sorry. Anyways, thank you, Chair, and thank you for Randy and Scott there for their in-depth presentation. I'm very impressed with all the work you have done. And a couple of questions come to mind, though, and maybe you cannot, there's no time to answer all my questions. One of them certainly is on my mind, and I applaud Hanover for the apartment building that they have built there, 90 units. Like, that is certainly for smaller housing. Is there any, and it's probably not your field, but are there any plans for smaller houses there that and more dense housing on the large estate housing that we see?
Randy or Scott?
Through you, Madam Chair. Thank you for your question, Simon. So the lands that are potentially being added, there's no specific plans for them yet in terms of, which lands could be residential or which lands could be industrial or commercial or anything else. With respect to the existing town of Hanover, the town's done a fair amount of work over the past 15 years to try to make sure they're using their existing land base to the extent possible. And so we're seeing at a planning level, obviously there's some apartment buildings happening, which is wonderful from a rental housing perspective. But we're also seeing a lot of conversions. We're seeing existing homes being sort of chunked out into different apartments. In some cases, the addition of new semi-detached dwellings or townhouses in sort of an infill capacity, and even the new sort of residential plans, so subdivisions we've seen over the last 10 years. It's not just single detached housing anymore. There's lots of townhouses and semis in that regard. So they're trying to use their lands as best as possible, but also from a housing perspective, create those opportunities for, maybe the young family that's looking for their first apartment or first home, or maybe the more seasoned veteran that's actually looking to downsize from a larger home. So that's one of the sort of the key general tenets in planning is as much as possible, we try to use what we have and grow up, not grow out. But at a certain point, and Hanover's done a lot of work to demonstrate this, there will be a land shortage within the next number of years, and that's why they've been proactively working with West Grey in that regard. So Simon, that was a bit of a ramble. I don't know if I've answered your question, but happy to take any further questions.
Oh, thank you very much. And there's another hand up, so deal with that first, and we'll carry on. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Simon. Blair, please.
Thank you. Scott, just a question. I'm just wondering how these lands are selected. I guess I'm generally in favor of development, but in my mind, the south and maybe the west sides are probably of poorer agricultural quality than some of the lands that have been selected. And I guess I also didn't know, does the fact that the west side falls in Bruce County, is that an impediment to working on that side of town, or how does this all work?
Sorry, through the chair. I just brought up the map here again. Great question, Blair. Thank you for that. So setting aside any municipal boundaries, from a general planning perspective, sort of the way the province lines it out is, if you are looking at growing one of your settlement areas, even if it's within your existing community, so let's just say Durham was expanding into West Grey, then the general principle is you look in all directions, and then you try to determine where is the logical location for growth, and so that logical location takes into account a number of factors. So it would take into account the land. So are they suitable for growth? Are they prime agricultural land? Are they lower quality agricultural lands? Are they sensitive natural environment lands? But then it would also take into consideration the ability to provide services to those lands. So if we have existing water and sewer pipes, where do they stop? Where can they be easily expanded to? Where is it feasible to expand the road network to, and everything else? And so in Hanover's looking at this, and they've been looking at it for a number of years now. They've truly considered all directions, and as you pointed out, and you can see it on the screen there, the lands to the west are in Bruce County and in Brockton in that regard. But there was a public meeting held back in 2021 by the town of Hanover, where they were looking at potential future growth lands in both Brockton and West Grey in that regard. And there were some initial discussions with Bruce County and with Brockton about whether or not there could be some formal further exploration or partnership here. In the end, my understanding is Brockton said sort of not at this time, no thank you. And so Hanover continued to chat with West Grey. In the discussions in West Grey, again, it's been heavily influenced by sort of topography, the quality of the agricultural lands, and the ability to service. And so, for those that know the area well, there's some major topographical changes in the south end of town that don't make for an easy expansion sort of further south or just off the page on my map here. The lands certainly to the east and to the north are more conducive, but as you said, some of those lands both to the east and the north are quality farmlands and very actively farmed right now. And so the municipalities have tried to be sensitive to that. And as Randy has noted, that's been sort of a central tenet from the get-go in terms of ensuring that those that do want to continue farming are able to continue to farm. And then when we get into that future planning stage, not all the lands would be shifted to a development designation at first. So likely a lot of those lands would continue to be farmed or used in their current state for many years, even decades before development is sort of on the doorstep in that regard. So I don't know if that answers your question, but certainly if it doesn't, happy to try in a different manner.
Are you all good, Blair? Thank you, Scott. And I saw this during the Elmwood live streaming, that meeting as well as today. What on earth is that obscure shape? Kind of looks like a whale. How does that come about that you have a property in that obscure shape?
Yeah, great question, Chair. I'll pull up my screen again here. It's kind of probably tough to see on your screens, but I think this is the one you're referring to, the little whale or dinosaur or whatever you have there. So you have the county road here, and it's tough to see, but there is a former rail line that goes up through parts of current Hanover into technically West Grey in this regard, and then back into Hanover. And then you also have the river just to the north here. And so in order to provide that sort of trail connectivity by the former rail line, but also to have, a logical geographic boundary in terms of the river, that's where it was decided to potentially include these lands here. So there's an existing house here and one other piece of land there. But it's really about maintaining sort of that infrastructure connectivity through the trail and then using sort of the river as that natural boundary, even though it looks kind of out of place compared to the square and the rectangle boundaries elsewhere. There was a lot of thought that went into sort of why that specific chunk of land was considered in that regard.
Thanks, Scott. It had me scratching my head, so I had to ask. So thank you. Any other questions or comments? Otherwise, Scott and Randy, thank you very much for that update today. I think it was important for everyone to hear, so thank you very much. Moving on to 4C, this is CAOR-AAC 1925 Experimental Acres Program 2025 update. Linda Scott Swanson from the Climate Change Manager from Grey County will do the presentation, as well as Emily McKeag from here at Grey Ag Services. But first, I'm looking for a motion as written that reports CAOR-AAC 1925 regarding the Experimental Acres 2025 program outcomes and next steps be received for information. Looking for a mover and a seconder, please.
I move.
Thank you, Brenda. Seconder?
Thank
you. I also saw Shirley's hand, so thank you. Shirley seconded the motion. Okay, so Linda and Emily, we look forward to your presentation today.
Thank you, Chair Smith. And thank you to the committee for having us here this morning to share this informational report on the 2025 Experimental Acres program season. I'm going to briefly speak a little bit about the program overall and the contents of the report, and then leave the heavy lifting to Emily to talk to you in more detail about the specific projects that happened this year and some of the learnings and outcomes that occurred. So this Last year, we had 6 producers who participated in our program, which touched directly 265 acres. We've seen year over year a growth in the number of acres that are touched. Since the program started in 2023, we've had 19 projects that have directly impacted 440 acres. But we know that that's sort of within a given program year. So when you think about those farmers or producers who maybe are continuing to use those practices in subsequent years or sharing their learnings with others, we know that it's a much larger number of acres across the county that have been touched by this program. The tagline of our program is "Farmers Know Their Land Best." This is very much a producer-driven program. It's not us coming in saying, here are 5 things. If you do them, we'll give you an incentive. It really is a micro grant innovation program where we're inviting producers to tell us what they know has the opportunity, or what they really believe has the opportunity to improve production on their land. And then based on the applications we receive in 2025, there were, I'm going to get this right, I want to say 15. We received 15 applications to participate in the program. And of those 15 applications, we could have given funding to almost all of them. There weren't bad applications, there were just applications that were stronger than others. So we use a blind review process to select the successful projects. A number of this committee's members sit on that review table. You don't know whose project you're looking at, you just get to see what the producer is proposing. And they're scored against a pre-established rubric that looks at the feasibility, that looks at the design, how replicable the project might be, so whether or not it's something that could be transferable, and then also centrally, how effective that project is likely to be with both resilience building on farm, so things that are going to decrease runoff, things that are going to mitigate against our changing climate, and also carbon sequestration. We know in our climate plan that Gray is blessed with a real opportunity to leverage nature-based solutions in which we are considering agriculture, so nature or land-based solutions. And so things like keeping roots in the ground, maintaining green cover, integrating animals into rotation, and reducing mechanical intervention are all things that we look for in the project applications. We try within the program to bake in or build in knowledge sharing. So we don't want the benefit of these programs to stop on the farm or the location where they happen. We really want there to be learning between the participants and also beyond the participants. So we host 2 events in 2025, a farm tour that some of you were able to join us on, which was great to actually visit some of the different producers and hear firsthand what they'd been doing, and then also a season end networking event where, again, participants are able to talk to each other. And the report that Emily is going to walk you through really documents a lot of the lesson learned, and that document is made available on both Gray Ag Services and the Gray County website, and also shared at the Gray Bruce Farmers Week, and really kind of made available to any interested parties. There's also a video which is on both organizations' websites for folks who I will ensure that link, I believe it's in the staff report, but I'll make sure that it is available where you can hear again in the voices of the participants what they learned and what the benefits they saw. Emily will walk you through the details of the project outcomes, but in terms of next steps, we have included in the draft 2026 Gray County budget the continuation of the program in partnership with Gray Ag Services. Gray Ag Services really does the vast majority of the entirety of the program administration with some support and strategic advice from Gray County staff. So we are recommending continuing the program, continuing our partnership with Gray Ag Services, and a modest increase in the program specifically to allow multi-year projects. So up until now, in the first 3 rounds of the programs, participation has always been for a single year. with in 1 or 2 instances us providing soil testing for the second year at a very modest cost. So that sort of has given us some indication, because we recognize that real improvements in soil are going to take more than a single season. So one of our hopes going forward is to look at a handful of perhaps multi-year at least testing for projects. And we do continue to look at ways to optimize the knowledge sharing. So are there ways we can better align these projects to be scalable, and also different approaches to program design. So with that, I'll hand things over to Emily to tell you a little bit about the projects.
Thank you, Linda. I'm just going to share my screen here. Awesome. Everybody can see that all right?
Yeah,
Perfect.
it's not in presenter mode yet, but
Is that better, Lori?
maybe it's just being slow. There we go. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay, so yeah, thank you, Linda. And as Linda said, I'm Emily. I work for Gray Ag Services along with Lori, and I had the pleasure of being able to help coordinate the Experimental Acres program for the past 2 years, and was able to be involved with it in 23 as well, when Wellington County was still looking after it. So I'm just going to run through each of our projects from this summer really quickly here. Our first project was Anthony Rabideau, who is down on the very south end of Grey County, and he was looking at comparing ramial mulch to grass mulch around the base of fruit trees and shrubs on his property. Ramial mulch is made from any tree branch that's smaller than 4 inches in diameter, with the thought that they are more metabolically active and still growing and going to release nutrients back into the soil more quickly. And he was specifically interested in looking at increasing mycorrhizal fungi in his soil. But that's quite difficult for us to measure. So we ended up instead doing a cotton test on his project and looking at the general microbial population that was there. So this was something that was popularized by the Soil Conservation Council of Canada several years ago. You bury identical pieces of cotton in the soil for about 2 months, and when you dig them up, you weigh them and see which has been broken down more thoroughly. And the piece of cotton with less remaining indicates a healthier microbial population in the soil. There was more microbes to help break it down. So interestingly, Anthony did see more breakdown on the cotton buried under ramial mulch, which was a great outcome for him. Our next project was Josh By from the Meaford area. He was looking at comparing 3 different varieties of forages to extend his grazing season, increase his forage production in the summer slump, hot months of the summer when perennial cool season pastures usually slow down. And he also did quite a bit of soil testing, and we did some forage sampling as well to monitor kind of all aspects of this. His original plan was to plant all 15 acres, which had previously been used for overwintering cattle, into warm season annuals. He was then going to graze them in late summer and replant 5 acres into cool season annuals, 5 acres into warm season perennials, and let 5 acres regrow for a second grazing of the warm season annuals. Cold, wet spring and a hot, droughty summer prevented the second stage of his project from happening. But he did have some really good learning takeaways from the project and was really happy with the outcome of the warm season annuals in the end. And he's looking forward to continuing to experiment with this stuff in the future. So that's a good takeaway. There's just a couple of pictures of his cattle grazing the cover crop on the right and the cover crop standing on the left. That was at the time when we took forage samples from it. Our third project was Gillian Griffin, who has Flora Gray, which is a flower farm in Chatsworth. She was looking at using pastured poultry to improve the fertility of soil in an area where she had planned to put into production in the following year. Just going to move to our next slide here. So you can see in the top center picture there's kind of a square area. She had tarped it in the fall of 2024 with the intention of putting it into production in 2025. She, in the early spring 25, planted an oats and peas cover crop to just have something growing in there until she was ready for it. And then her goal for the project was to rotate turkeys across that area and try to improve the fertility of the soil and reduce the amount of compost that she would purchase in to incorporate in there. She ended up needing to expand into that area earlier than she thought. So you can see the picture on the top right has some landscape cloth down, and she had a bunch of flowers produced from there over the summer. The kind of yellow brownish stuff at the right side of the picture is the oats and peas that was left that wasn't touched in the fall. And then that was on the north end of her current production area. On the south end is where she ended up putting the turkeys on. So it ended up being kind of neat. We were able to take soil sampling on the area, the original area in the spring, and then compare it with the area where the turkeys were and the area where the cover crop was left and not touched. But this is a project that'll benefit from her continuing to soil test down the road, because the changes in fertility are hard to see in one growing season. Our next project was Peter Kotzeff, who had several farms that he was running his trial on. And those fields totaled about 210 acres, and they included wheat, some of it with and some without red clover underseeding, as well as triticale with or without red clover underseeding. And his intention was to have those crops established, go in, broadcast turnip seed over them, still be able to harvest the wheat for grain or the triticale for forage crops, and then have turnip left behind, which would grow up and provide him with extended fall grazing for his cow-calf herd. He found that anywhere that the original crop was a good thick stand, or where it had red clover underseeding already established, the turnip wasn't able to compete, so he didn't have great germination. But if along field edges or in thinner spots, it got enough sunlight and moisture, he felt, and was able to come up and provided good forage for the cattle in the end. So his takeaways were that he would not overseed it onto a well-established crop, but he would definitely continue to broadcast turnip seed around field edges in the future, because it really filled those spaces in. That picture was taken of Peter at our September farm tour, and you can see he had some triticale that didn't get harvested in the background behind him, and the turnip really came up thickly in there as well, just along the edge of the area that he'd been working in. Wade Deacon is down in the Elmwood area, and he was looking at late summer seeding hay after he took wheat off of a field, and he wanted to improve the success of the hay stand that he got. So I'll just carry on. If you can see, the bottom right corner picture there is not from Wade's field. It was just one that we were using as an example of the density of volunteer wheat swaths that can come up in a field. So that was wheat seed that was dropped behind the combine as the grain was taken off the field, and then it germinates and comes up. So he wanted to prevent that from happening in his hay field, and it would come up in the hay and then die off and leave bare spots in the field. So he wanted to prevent that and get a more even stand. He had a very simple project. He just spread the straw out of the back of the combine, distributed the seed across the field. Then he went back in, raked the straw into rows, baled it, and had his hayfield no-till drilled in. And the picture on the left there and the middle right are from our September farm tour, and he had an excellent, very, very uniform stand of hay. The wheat was there, but it was very, very well distributed, so he should have a pretty good crop in the coming years. Our last project was Dr. Christina Allen, who was looking at using permaculture techniques to create apple guilds on her property. She had a twofold outcome that she wanted to see from this.
So she's a naturopathic doctor, and she wanted to be able to incorporate a variety of plants that have beneficial uses. So things like pest deterrent or nutrient fixing or soil aeration, that kind of stuff at the base of these apple trees, which would then provide protection for the plants. And those plants that she was incorporating in her guilds, she would then use for their medicinal purposes in her practice. And then the other thing that she wanted to do was study whether there's a difference in the nutrient content of apples on her tree with a huge amount of biodiversity in the plants at the base of it compared to apples from her neighbor's trees, which were on a monocultured lawn growing beneath it. So we did the nutrient testing from those, and there was quite a difference in some of the nutrients that came back, which was pretty interesting to see as well. That's just a couple more pictures of Christina's guild. And then I just wanted, Linda already mentioned it, but I just wanted to put a little plug in for the project outcome report. So it is posted on the Grey County website and the Grey Ag Services website on our Experimental Acres pages. It has a lot more detail about each of the projects and how they were set up and what the producer did, what their goals were. And then it also includes all of the tables of soil testing results and forage results and nutrient analysis and that kind of thing in it, if anybody's interested in taking a look at that. And then, like Linda said, Grey County put a fantastic video together. The content was collected on our September Farm Tour Day, and you can hear directly from the producers what they thought of the program and their projects and what some of their takeaways were for the year. So thank you so much for listening. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
Thanks so much, Emily, for an excellent presentation, and Linda for the introduction as well. If anyone has any questions or comments, please raise your digital hand. Paul, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and very interesting. I've seen some of this before, but it would be good on some of those projects to have, I know you said you're looking at a multiple year, but even on those projects to have a follow-up or a walking tour just to see, how successful, they are the following year on especially the seeding down after the wheat or with regards to the turnip. I understand the turnip opens up the soil and breaks down the hardness of it and that. So it just, just to follow up with, you did 1 year, but a snapshot of 1 or 2 or 3 years would be, I think, really beneficial to even see how successful it is.
Thanks, Paul. Emily?
Yeah, definitely. We've definitely heard from some of the producers this year, both in terms of following up with like soil testing in future years would be great, or just checking in. And I mean, we have kind of stayed in touch with some of the past producers so far from the project, just getting to know them throughout the course of the summer. But then also we've had some feedback from producers that just being able to put together a project that would look at outcomes or follow the project through several rotations over 2 or 3 years wouldn't have to be incredibly intense in the subsequent years, but that kind of thing would be really valuable to the program, I think.
And just to follow up to that, I'm sure.
Yes.
So I think at one time when I used to be different times being in the ag office, there was, I don't know if it was from OMAFRA, just there was like 1 or 2 or 3 page report on doing certain projects or information packages that for farming and doing certain things, whether it was bale wrapping or this or that. And some of those date back to the 90s. Just a report on those things that it's sort of their, I'm going to say paper form, and I guess there's other ways of finding, but there's still farmers that look at paper. I know I do. Probably Brian does as well. Maybe, I don't know, but you know what I mean? Like there's, okay, hey, and then there's a bit of a, there's a bit of a report on what the individual did. These are the outcomes, FYI. So people could use those as resource materials, 1, 2, 10 years down the road. And obviously different parts of the province and climates and heat units probably change a lot as well. but this is sort of a Grey County growing, experimental plot. I think it's good information that can carry on to, future farmers and current farmers, and just, it's not lost. So it continues on. I guess that's where I'm sort of thinking.
And certainly that's why Emily worked so hard on the project review report, and all that information is there. So we will make it available to anyone that would like it. And because it's on both websites, everyone, no matter where you are, can access that information.
It's just to know
that
those
it's
that
there.
don't know. Yeah, those that don't know, and just to make that information available to those. And certainly Farmers Week and other things that probably could make those things available, and just through your advocation through the Ag office as well. But it's all
there will
great.
be information through Gravers Farmers Week. Also, there's been a lot of social media posts as well about this excellent project. So it's been great for Grey Ag to get involved in this, and Emily's done an outstanding job, and it's been great to work with Grey County on this project. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Simon, question?
Well, most of my questions have been answered, and thank you very much for this presentation and for all the work that is done. And I fully agree with Paul, like the more of the data that we have collected, we can put to use at some point. Like we started to hear more about regenerative agriculture, and of course from the other parts that there is, we can slam around the ears of the things that agriculture does wrong. So here is a lot of good stuff that happens, and the more data there is, the more we can defend what we're doing, and it's only beneficial to agriculture. Thank you very much again for all this work.
I see lots of nods of heads. Wonderful. Any other questions or comments? Emily and Linda, thank you very much for this excellent presentation, and thank you for the questions that were posed. I'd like to go back to the motion, call the question, and because we're digital, anyone opposed to the passing of this motion? Seeing no hands, I'm assuming that that's carried. Okay, thank you very much, Linda and Emily. That was great. Good to see you again. So one last item, dead stock removal, which Scott Taylor, Director of Planning, is going to give a high-level overview of this as well. Scott, take it away.
Great. Thanks, Chair Smith. And full honesty here, this isn't a topic I have a great deal of knowledge on. So most around the table probably know more than me. So if you need to cut me off through the chair, just cut me off. I was lucky enough to attend a webinar that was put on by OMAFA on December the 1st, and I'd actually hoped to have more visual materials to share with you today. They held a webinar that was fairly widely attended for sort of municipalities and municipal officials in terms of sort of reminders about farmers' requirements with respect to dead stock disposal options, and going through the various options from collection to composting to incineration to disposal vessels or burial. And talked about some of the timelines associated there, what the municipal role is, which in this case it's very little. It's mostly done through OMAFA, and certain elements are done through the Ministry of the Environment in that regard. But they did have a very informative slide deck that for someone like me that has a very, very cursory knowledge of this topic, I found tremendously useful. And so the province is supposed to be sharing this slide deck. So my hope is that if we do get a copy shared to us, that we could send it out through the clerk's department to the Agricultural Advisory Committee. I suspect for some of you, it's stuff you already know. The province didn't announce any major changes to the program. They reiterated the 48-hour time frame after an animal goes down, unless there's cold storage available. And they reiterated the processes around emergency scenarios, whereby if you had a widespread disease outbreak, or if you had something tragic like a barn fire or collapse or something like that, there are other options or abilities to get emergency permits beyond that 48 hours. But overall, it was sort of more of an educational thing, and certainly happy to take any questions if there are any, but also commit to once we do get that slide deck shared from OMAFA, we can certainly share it with the committee here through email and also with our member municipalities, because I suspect, especially for 7 of our 9 municipalities that have large amounts of farmland and rural areas, there are some questions from time to time, and certainly there were some questions from some of the municipal officials on the webinar. So with that, I'll turn it back to the chair, but again, if there are any high-level questions, happy to take them.
Thank you, Scott. Simon has a question.
Thank you, Scott, for this presentation. And I am not totally up to snuff with all what's going on. So this is my question. Are there any grants available to build facilities to just let those carcasses turn into whatever, mulch on the end, or what is there? And what are the regulations for if there are such a buildings or structures to decompose your animals at the farm?
Through the chair, thank you for that question, Simon. Maybe just one bit of clarification before I attempt to answer it. In terms of the grants available, are you talking about grants to individual farmers that might need assistance here, or are you talking about more of a grant in terms of if someone was going to open, say, a new rendering facility or something of that nature?
You actually give me words in my mouth. There's
Oh,
two
sorry.
of those. Those are the two options, and I do understand that the rendering that we have seen in the past has become much more centralized, and it seemed to be less user-friendly than it was in the past. So, but I was at one point, I was worked out that it maybe could be done like a decomposing site, let's say on one road or so, that a number of farmers would have an interest in there, but I haven't heard anything since about this. So maybe just if you just...
I think, Scott, I think Simon's challenge is that the dead stock pickup won't go north of 21 highway. So there's a chunk of farmers in our geography that can't get on farm pickup. And I know you don't have the solution to that, but that's the challenge.
Huge.
Yeah, through the chair, and that was raised by a number of municipal officials on the call too, and particularly into Northern Ontario as well. And I realize we're definitely not Northern Ontario, but there was geography from across the province. Simon, we can certainly reach back out to OMAFA. They didn't necessarily announce any grant opportunities in that regard. They did go over some of the options available to farmers and kind of highlighted the pros and the cons of each. And so certainly they talked about on-farm composting and talked about sort of the regulations that apply to that. And then they also talked about disposal vessels on farm. And I'd heard a lot about on-farm composting before. I hadn't necessarily heard about disposal vessels as much. The disposal vessels, my understanding, would be much more applicable to, if you had poultry or very small animals in that regard. Certainly they at least the pictures they showed didn't seem to be applicable to large animals like cattle in that regard. So there wasn't a lot of solutions there. They highlighted the fact that the province does have the list of licensed collectors, but as both Blair and Simon said, there's limits to that geography, and they're not available everywhere. So again, no real solutions. We can certainly reach back to OMAFA, and if it's the will of this committee, again, highlight the fact that there are parts of Grey and Bruce counties that don't have that availability for dead stock collection, but the province didn't have further solutions in that regard. Sorry.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you very much for that update, Scott. Appreciate it. Simon, sorry, or Blair, yes, sorry.
Is there some kind of a standardized pre-engineered plan for a composting simple setup? I mean, maybe that would be something that with building officials, something that's pre-approved and like the plan is there that you can just do it. I think might be something that could be done if it doesn't exist already.
I think it is part of one of the OMAFA fact sheets. Maybe we can take a look at that and see if we can find one. Scott, do you have any comment on that?
No, Chair Smith, I was just browsing the OMAFA website as you spoke there, and it looks to be very high level. Blair, I can take that back and follow up with OMAFA staff and see if there is anything pre-approved, or if not, see if any of our building officials would know, but I'm not personally aware. Like there's pictures on the ontario.ca website of different facilities and everything else, but as to the sort of rigmarole that a farmer went through to get that facility, I'm less certain in that regard, but I'll look into that further.
Thanks for chasing that, Scott. Thank you, Blair. Okay, moving on then. Next is the roundtable discussion. So as I always say, this is the farmers' opportunities to make sure that they can share the challenges and the opportunities that they're facing today so that we make everyone aware of what we are dealing with. Who would like to start us off? Blair, your hand is up. Do you want to? No? Okay. Somebody be a brave soul, please. Keith.
Yes, thank you, Lori. Just wanted to give a quick update. I think probably most of you are aware, but definitely the municipalities, I think, have been had the opportunity to have Tim Lanthier come to your council chambers to discuss the changes involved with the CA. There is talks of the setup of the way the conservations are now is made up of 36 separate watersheds. And so the proposed change is to have that narrowed down to 7. So it'll be a complete overhaul of the CAs as we know them now. Grey Sauble will be encompassed as will be called Huron Superior Regional Conservation Authority, which encompasses the northern shore of Lake Huron, part of the Lake Superior Basin, Georgian Bay, central portion of the northwestern Lake Superior secondary watershed. So it encompasses Sauble Bayfield, Maitland Valley, Saugeen Valley, Grey Sauble, Nottawasaga. It encompasses a huge area. So there's lots of changes that's going to be happening, but not going to be right away. It's going to take some time for this to happen. But there is a comment period as well, and I believe it's into December here if anybody is interested in making their voice known or heard. But definitely, I don't think there's going to be a lot of change right away, and definitely not each office, I believe, will still be functioning as normal. But there's so many unanswered questions of what things will look like. And of course, I think for those of us within the rural designation are always concerned about the rural voice being lost, and just having that local connection. So I think some of the reasoning for why it has happened is each CA has been permitting and regulating differently. So there's the idea of having a kind of an overhaul to make sure that everything is the same, which I think makes sense, but is the way they're doing it the proper way? We're not completely sure. So nothing will likely take place until into the new year of January 2027. There's going to be a lot of spinning parts before that to get to that point, but again, the biggest thing will be right now, Grey Sauble's board is made up of the 7 or 8 municipalities within the watershed, and what that board will look like going forward, nobody really knows. So yeah, so it'll be lots of changes coming, and so keep that in your minds. And if there's anybody else with comments from local municipalities, would be glad to hear. I don't have all the answers, and I know that Tim has, I think, graced most of your offices as well. And he was also on the open line today. So if anybody is interested in hearing his talk with Philly this morning, that would be a good opportunity to learn quite a bit about it. So anyways, that's just what's on my mind this morning.
Thanks, Keith, for that. And Scott has put a link in the chat for everyone to check out as well. Any comments or questions to Keith's comments about changes to the CAs? Simon, is your comment based on that?
Yeah, for what I know, the comment period closes on December the 11th at 5 o'clock or so. So
Tomorrow.
there's no, if I'm right, there's not a whole lot of time left. I think the fear for the unknown is certainly here, and there again, there is some rumor around, and I don't know whether that is any merit or not, but that that will also open up more possibilities to build on land that was prohibited before. Now, I don't know whether that makes any sense or not. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but um, there again, the fear for the unknown is certainly there at this point.
Yes, thank you, Simon. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, thank you for bringing that point up, Keith. It's certainly something to keep our eye on. Any other comments? Brenda, what would you like to bring to the table today?
It's just an oldie but a goodie. Snow started really early this year, as we all know really well. And, of course, spending any time on the roads, you know that NFU has over the years kept bringing this up, this idea of keeping hedgerows or adding hedgerows in along roadways. I mean, really, if we drive anywhere, you could tell where all the snow is blowing. It's always along those fields, which don't have any shrubs or tree or plant or any kind of cover. I just wonder if I know that Grey County has a program to do with keeping standing corn in place and or getting landowners to possibly plant with, the 20-year contract to have that in place. I'm just wondering, I know we have that program in place, but like how much take up is there on that? Like it's not the most appealing program, honestly, for farmers, this 20-year thing. I guess I have some questions about how can we sweeten the pot? How can we make this easier? Is there even even along roadways, a bunch of that actually belongs to the municipalities and the counties, right? There's a certain distance off of the roads that still belongs to them. And I know you can't plant trees too close to the roadways. So I'm just wondering, is there any creativity that can be found here? I know that there are definitely farm fields which are, planting right out into these municipal and county lands as well. I'm just wondering, is there any can we modify this program at all to make it more attractive to landowners to actually do something about it? Because, I mean, I'm not saying this was caused by it, but snow is causing it. There was a bus accident the other day. We keep hearing more and more accidents happening. I know people are, getting even worse at driving on these winter roads, but I do feel like we, as like lots of landowners in Grey County, do need to do something about this as well, farmers. So Andrea has her hand up, and I think she might have some information on this. So
Great question, Brenda. Andrea, do you have some answers?
No, I don't have answers, but when I used to sit on both Grace Harbor Conservation Authority and also Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority, we got reports, some follow-up reports from Nottawasaga Valley on programs where we had worked with farmers to establish a windbreak, and then it had to be pulled out again because the complications because of the physics that the windrow, in order for it to keep the snow off of that actual road, it has to be planted so far in the field that it became too complicated for the farmer to be able to do their job on farming. So that's as much of my extent of my comprehension. I would actually perhaps ask Keith if he's got any further information, just because of his positions with the conservation authorities, any exchange of information that's been going on with the conservation authorities that have tried but have had problems because of the distance it needs to. Otherwise, the snow, we all think of, I used to, when my husband's from England, we used to drive around these hedgerows that were right up against the, and you'd think, oh, wow, wouldn't that be a great, a prevention for snow in our area? But apparently it doesn't work that way. It's got to be set back further. So I don't know, Keith, if you have any further discussion, if you're have any further knowledge more specifically?
Yeah, nothing really positive for sure. It's not an easy sell. And I think you're right. There is a way to put it in properly, and there's a way that actually works against the road system. So And I can attest to that because I put up a pole fence about 25 or 30 feet beside my laneway, and there was no issues before. And now I thought that it was going to stop the snow in the field, and it actually stops the snow exactly right on my laneway now. So yeah, having the reminding that of every time the wind blows up here, so which is all the time. So anyways, there's a good way to do it and there's a bad way to do it. The issues that we're dealing with, I have had conversations with several landowners trying to implement this. I'm definitely in favor of the program for sure. They are cautious of a 20-year agreement. They are also cautious, anybody that has made investment in tile drainage, there can be issues with roots getting into the tile drains and causing issues that way. And when you're having to put the windbreak back, which you've described, it just makes an awkward piece of farmland next to the road. And yeah, it's not an easy sell. I know that there was talks of the corn within the county, but I'm not sure whether there was a whole lot of success with that either. But everybody that is interested wants to have it right next to the road, and you know, the land values, it just makes sense that they're just not wanting to give up a whole lot of land for that purpose. So yeah, it's something I've been trying to implement, but it's not been easy for sure. So
Thanks for that, Keith. Can anyone from the county talk about the Living Snow Fence program? Randy?
Yeah, and maybe I'll turn it over to Linda or Megan, because we see merit in it, obviously, in terms of trying to increase this, but we have seen limited uptake, and I think some of the challenges that both the warden and Keith spoke to are some of the challenges that we face with respect to trying to increase that uptake. But I don't know, put you on the spot, Megan, but I know Megan has been working with her transportation service department to see if we can try to increase the uptake. But yeah, there's some challenges there for sure. So yeah, Megan.
Yeah. Thanks, Randy. Yeah, through you, the chair. I think we have been working to try to make some improvements to the program, and Lori and Keith, we've had discussions about how to make it more appealing. I think Sean from transportation had indicated that he was also more interested in these longer term agreements rather than the corn rows that change from years to year. So we've gotten some good feedback, and transportation has received approximately 5 to 10 inquiries about the program. Georgian Bluffs was also doing some dedicated outreach to raise awareness about the program. We had also hoped that one of the Town of Blue Mountains Youth Climate Action projects were going to focus on this issue, and we were hoping that a promotional video would come out and just kind of increase awareness about the program. Unfortunately, they decided to go in a slightly different direction, so that didn't work out. But yeah, I think that there are some limiting factors. One would be the cost of trees, the position also. So one of the landowners that I did a site visit for, just because of where they would ideally be situated, it does cut up the field. So still more work to be done. But from our initial kind of conversations, there is some interest in the program, and I think that if there's direction from council to do so, I think there could be potential improvements and for further work done.
Thank you for that, Megan. Paul?
So a thought I've always had, and it's more of a permanent solution, and I'll use an example of County Road 124 that goes from over my way here from Shelburne to Singhampton. Many times it's closed, and it could be any other corridors that are there. And that used to be a provincial highway at one time. Was creating a program where you almost have to include maybe the province or the counties, where you first create an easement. And on that easement, and you'd have to have an agreement or a purchase of that or a right of way. On that easement, as Andrea would say, you'd have to have that so far back from the road to be to work, suffice. You plant maybe 6 rows of trees. Number of things you create here, and you create a corridor for wildlife. You also create a buffer that stops that snow, and you can imagine the insurance costs, and not just the insurance costs, but maybe the loss of life that happens in a major snowstorm where people can't see, and you know, we've heard those stories. But you create a corridor that becomes a wildlife corridor. It's a living snow fence, but also you create a legacy or maybe something that you create a walking trail through. And so you have a number of check the boxes, but it's a bigger idea than just, you know, something that's more this or that or the cornfield. It's sort of something that's long lasting. But the benefits, you know, you start looking at all the benefits from a climate change perspective, a living corridor, a walking trail, and you could create it that the project could be from a donation, or it could be from a group of people that have a legacy that want to create this thing. It's just, that's always an idea. And I know at one time, I remember talking to representatives from Dufferin County about this idea, but you have to get, it has to be a program that is financially benefiting to the landowners, whether it's a corridor or an easement or however. But I think there's a lot of things to look at that could be a win-win-win for a lot of different reasons. And you see that areas where sections of the road where there is, you know, fully treed, there's no snowbanks. They're not the whiteouts. And then not only is that, I remember as a kid, you know, you'd see more plowing fields, and today a lot more no-till. But when those plow fields get turned up in the middle of the winter and they get the sun on it, you have erosion as well. And it's surprising how much dirt moves when it is windswept through. And anybody that's taking out a fence row, you'll find that there's a lot of topsoil in the fence row because it has captured, you know, those drifting soils and all that kind of stuff. So it's an idea out there, but I have had conversations with others over the years. It's a bit of a big idea, but that's something that I've always had in the back of my mind that could be beneficial in a lot of reasons.
Thanks, Paul. Megan, did you want to speak to that at all?
I don't think so. I think it's a great idea and definitely worth further exploration.
Perfect. Thank you. Blair, please.
Megan, just curious, have we ever tried using, I don't even know what they're called, but like tall grasses that people would have in their flower beds? You can mow them in the spring, you can drive through them with equipment, and you let them grow in the fall and just leave them. Has that been tried?
It hasn't been, but that was actually one of Keith's ideas when we were talking about potential improvements to the program, as it might be like a shorter term win-win where someone who's not necessarily, it's less
You
budget
still
to
got to pay
plant
me
these
for it,
tall.
but it's easier
Yeah,
for me to get rid of it if I don't want it. That kind of stuff.
exactly. Just gets that kind of like foot in the door early buy-in. So someone might try that for a few years and then it's like, oh, that's great. And then they might be more willing. So I think that's definitely worth looking into as well.
Great idea, Blair. Brenda.
I love all of these ideas. I just wonder if there is something that we can have a partnership on. Maybe Alice and the county through the Climate Action Group, maybe through Experimental Acres, find one site, which could be a great demo of planting out something like this. Maybe with the grasses, maybe as, you know, a trial of like grasses versus shrub, whatever might help in this area. But I do feel like this is something that we should really be throwing out there. And I agree with Paul. This is like a more of a whole landscape mind shift that needs to happen to really change things, and maybe we just need some examples out there. So I challenge us as a group to be able to do something about this, because of course even a single loss of life is not worth the extra bushels of corn you get from, you know, those bits of strips everywhere. And I know that farmers would rather not have the lives lost. So if we could even just find a demo or something. I mean, we know what it's like to like work at the nuclear plant and have to drive home and then have all the roads closed right after you leave. Your shift ends, then they close the roads, and you get to convoy it home and hope that everyone makes it back because you have enough of you on the road to help pull anybody out of the ditch or get you somewhere else. Like that's not a great way to work. That's not a great way to do things. And with climate change, we are going to get more and more of this lake effect snow, as we well know. if that lake doesn't, if Lake Huron doesn't freeze over, this is just going to become more of a problem. So I do feel like this is a very obvious thing that if we can get some sort of cooperation between all of the different groups that are represented, even here in this meeting and with the county, I think we can really demonstrate how we can actually do something about this. And maybe we even add in soil testing, we add in other things just to show how that really changes things. And like what Paul was saying with the loss of soil from erosion and stuff, that this could actually aid with that too. The other thing I was going to mention is that actually retaining, I know that we don't think this is such a crazy, a needed thing these days, but as we get more droughts into the summer, retaining more snow on our farmlands as well. It's actually, in Quebec, it's much more well known. In Quebec, I think the rule or the rule of thumb that people are used to now is I think for every 20 acres, you actually put in a windbreak or a hedgerow. And it's become actually very normalized there because the provincial ministry there spent the past 20 years educating people on this. And now, you know, they're like, oh, we need to put in more hedgerows so we can retain more snow, so we have more moisture retained throughout the growing season so that we can keep cropping. So I think that we really need some real life examples in Grey County. And I think if we can figure that out as a group, that would be a really great start.
Great idea, Brenda. Anyone want to speak to some of those ideas?
Yeah, I think just lastly, I think I should have mentioned before, transportation has mapped some of the key, like most beneficial locations and high priority locations. And we also do have our landowner list of potential inquiries. So I think between those different data sets, we can hopefully identify some opportunities for a demonstration project, as you say, and go from there.
Perfect. So we look forward to some things happening on that regard by the sounds of things. Brenda, thank you for bringing it up because there was lots of discussion there. Any other trends or challenges, opportunities that we want to speak to when we have the opportunity? Blair, please.
Just for Scott or the county, wondered about whether now or in the future there's more of these ground mount solar projects, I guess, being proposed, and wondered if potentially another time we could have a discussion about what are the, I guess, boxes that need to be checked for something like that to move forward. How do we make sure that they are on lands that are, I guess, not prime farmland, or streamline that a bit somehow? And what's the process there, I guess? Doesn't have to be today, but just for whenever.
Thanks, Blair. Any comments? Scott?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. Great question, Blair. If it's appropriate and if the committee concurs, we can bring something back to the first meeting in 2026 and maybe have a bit of a slideshow and discussion on that. And I know certainly we're seeing more and more pressure with respect to both ground mounted solar, but also the battery energy storage facilities. And we've got a planner in our office that's done a fair bit of work on this, so I could confer with her and hopefully we could bring something informative back to this committee.
Wonderful. Thank you, Scott. Any other topics we should be addressing today? Seeing no hands, I'm assuming we will carry on. Thank you for that live. Oops, Simon, please.
Sorry to come in. That's the very last. Talked about Steve Duff coming, and so the next meeting will be in April sometime.
March, actually, March 5th.
March the 5th. The trade negotiations with the US will probably, or well, whatever. It's very hard to make predictions about an unpredictable man, so wherever that will go. But last week I was at a presentation with Steve Duff and Al Muzzle, and they made a great duo together. Like, I really enjoyed their presentation. So maybe one thing to look into. Like, I'm not sure where this whole thing will go with trade negotiations and so on, but it is certainly it will have far-reaching effects for agriculture. So,
yes, and certainly Graber's Farmers Week will address a lot of that on each of the days too. I was hoping that Carrie would still be on. I was wondering what was happening with regards to canola, with the issues with shipping to China, whether they're, how local farmers were handling that. But with Kerry gone, I'm not sure anyone wants to speak to that. But certainly there are a lot of issues facing farmers today economically, like everyone else. So it will be great to hear from Steve and possibly Al to get more information on that. Okie doke. Moving on, the next point is correspondence, and there were a couple of items shared with us prior to this meeting: farm transition planning and call for stories. Hopefully you have looked at those pieces of correspondence. I was in a webinar last week where Wellington and Huron County shared what they've been doing on the transition and succession opportunities. Lots of great resources there that we should be all using rather than reinventing the wheel. And interesting with regards to the museum wanting to hear more about our farming stories and how climate has affected what we're doing. Scott, I was told that perhaps you could lead some of the discussion on these two correspondence pieces if there were any comments or questions.
Sure, I think I can start the discussion. I see the clerk has her hand up, and I know Savannah maybe has something to contribute on the one as well. So maybe I'll turn it over to Tara for now.
Thank you.
Sorry, thank you, Chair Smith. Just wanted to note that for the call for stories, either Linda Swanson or Savannah can likely provide further information on that.
Perfect. So let's start on the transition piece. Scott, is that you?
I can start, and then I might turn it over to Savannah through you, Madam Chair. So yeah, we thought we'd share this as an interesting resource. Wellington has done a number of workshops and a lot of work on this farm transition planning. Certainly that's a topic that we've heard come up in this committee and at other tables across the years. And so I'd highly encourage you to have a look at the link. More particularly, if you go about halfway down the page, when you get to that link, there's a link to the actual guide that Wellington has put together here too. And just browsing through the guide, it's about 54 pages. It's very comprehensive. And I think although Wellington's a slightly different jurisdiction, lots of transferable knowledge we could share there. So I think in terms of conversations that you might be having within your sectors, or maybe even future discussion topics at this committee, there's lots of positive work that's been done. And in the municipal sector, we talk a lot about R&D, which is robbing and duplicating. So if someone's already done a lot of the work, no sense in recreating the wheel. But I know Savannah has some thoughts here. So through you, Madam Chair, I'll turn it over to Savannah.
Thank you.
Sure, thanks, Scott. And through you, Madam Chair. Wellington and Huron have been doing really good work in this area. And I know that we have absolutely been involved in the past. And one thing that we're excited about is that with the transition to our next transfer payment agreement through small business enterprise centers across the province, they are adding succession planning to one of our deliverables. So there's a lot of new training and new programs that haven't been launched yet, but are coming out in January for staff to learn first. So I know Courtney in our office, she is a farmer. She is very excited about this and what potential that might mean for this area. So we will be going to everything we possibly can and looking to bring something formally to Grey County come April. That is the goal so that we can roll this out here. But absolutely R&Ding, as Scott said, we like that term and that practice. Because we've got great colleagues around the province and there's a lot of similarities. So anything that we can do together around the succession and the transition planning is something that we will be engaged in. So that's a conversation we'll have with this group when the time comes.
Sounds wonderful, Savannah. One of the things that jumped out when I started looking at the information was only 19% of Ontario farms have a written succession plan, which is pretty scary. But we all know that we put our heads in the sand because we don't want to deal with that. We think we're going to live forever, so why start? But it takes, when you listen to people that are doing succession planning, transition planning, takes more than 10 years in most situations. So we need to start today. So yeah, any comments on that first piece of correspondence? Keith?
Yeah, just a quick comment, and Paul, you might be able to add into this, but I wasn't able to get down to the OFA AGM this year, but there was an excellent speaker, Tom Deans, talking about this very issue and about the transition of wealth between, as our population is aging, we're almost skipping a generation from where the businesses are transitioning to. Because the boomers they're living longer. They were in a time where they were just in the sweet spot of starting entrepreneurial businesses and making a go of it, and inflation and everything just kind of worked. So we've created a lot of wealth, and still healthy and able to maintain those businesses, and to have them transition to the next generation or the next heir is not a simple procedure, and it's happening too late in the game. So yeah, it's a huge, not only with farms but local businesses as well. And I know the county has done a really great job on, you know, getting new business to our community, but actually we might have to look inwards and looking at the businesses that we already have existing, and how will they manage the next transition of generation. So yeah, looking at new businesses coming and retaining them, but we've got a lot of businesses that have started, and older generations are still running them in well into their 70s and even 80s, and still doing fine at it. And and then their sons or daughters are, you know, 60 or even older, and they're looking at, well, they're already settled, so we'll actually heir it to the grandkids, which is a problem. So, and I know Paul was there, and he knew someone, so I'll let him speak to it too. I see his hands up. So, but
Thanks,
he
Keith.
might be a great speaker to have
Yeah.
engage within the community.
I did want to note that Gravers Farmers Week on Dairy Day has an excellent speaker on succession. Lawyer Bob Scriven does an amazing job of talking about succession and transition. So come to Dairy Day if you want to hear that. Paul, please.
Yes, I had a friend. So if you go to the Grey County, or sorry, the Ontario Federation of Ag's website on the general meeting that was a couple weeks back, there is a video with him speaking. I would encourage everyone to listen to him. I bought the book. I haven't read the book yet, but I got the book. He really hit home with what he was saying. And you're right, Keith, about the next generation and different things like that. And so yes, I would say watch that and look at that. Look, I don't know if you can, probably could still source out the book, but it's, you know, in a nutshell, have the conversation when everybody is alive. And he also talked about, I don't know if the percentage was 25%, but there's a lot, I think you mentioned it, Laura, there's a lot of people that don't have succession plans, don't have wills. He said there's all parts of the sector, lawyers and financial people just don't have wills. They just don't get to it. And I think we all sort of fall into that. Like, we don't want to deal with, you know, we don't want to deal with it. And it's probably a natural thing we just don't want to deal with, but it is something that I think of an individual farmer in our Grey County region that just recently passed away, and, you know, and things happen. You don't, that's one thing God doesn't tell us. He doesn't tell us when we're leaving, and it happens whenever it's ready to happen. And so it's something that we need to be prepared for. And it also spoke to the part of, if you want the family to stay together, you need to deal with it now, because the worst thing that can happen is it can tear a family apart when there's a death. So I'll leave it at that. Watch the video.
Good points, Paul. Thank you. Savannah.
Through you, Madam Chair, I was just going to say, you know, one of the things that is really difficult about succession planning and transition planning is exactly what you're talking about. Part of it is not wanting to talk about what happens when. And the best time to do that planning is at the beginning. When a business is starting up or a transition is happening, that's the best time to plan for the next transition. But we often leave it until the very end because we're so focused on the startup, not what it looks like on the other side. And what we've seen across other sectors is that there's a lot of recommendations from financial and accountants and lawyers to say, close your business. It's better for you to close it. Don't sell it. We don't want that. We want to see these continue. So we're trying to have those conversations, and also understanding that it's a really, really personal thing that people don't want out there. Most businesses don't want it known that they're talking about that transition or what happens next. So being highly confidential and really well trusted is important. And there aren't a lot well, there's lots of different ways to do succession and transition planning, but they're kind of all over the map. So we've spent a lot of time internally looking at kind of best practice out there, bits and pieces of what we love and what we don't like from different succession and transition planning programs. And that's where we're trying to build something by R&D that is really truly a made in gray approach that works for this area and that fits. So that's why I think it'll be Courtney actually who comes back to this group to talk about it specifically, because we will want your input, because it is so much more prevalent and it is a much bigger deal in agriculture because of that family aspect in particular. So there's a lot of people in the region who want to buy businesses. They're not necessarily looking at ag businesses because that's more generational. So I think that you've got really unique circumstances here, but anything that we can do to support this is absolutely on our radar and is on the work plan for 2026. So we'll be back.
Wonderful, Savannah. And Christmas is right around the corner. What a great opportunity when everyone's around the table to start talking about succession and transition. Wouldn't that be a party booster? Okay, so the other correspondence was the call for stories. Linda, did you want to speak to that?
Sure, I can kick things off, and then of course, Savannah, if you want to add anything around the wild weather exhibit itself or anything to do with it, please jump in. So as you would have seen in the correspondence, Grey Roots Museum is happily hosting the acclaimed wild weather exhibit in May 2026. This is a traveling exhibit about how weather happens. It's very family friendly, very engaging. Our local Grey Georgian Bluffs Climate Action Team has felt, this is a volunteer resident group, that they wanted to take all of this great information about weather and translate it into something that was really locally relevant, grounded in local stories. So they've been working closely with Grey Roots staff for months at this point, thinking about how a small kind of addendum to the wild weather exhibit can help make that information really hit home and specifically connect some of the weather science to our changing climate. So they placed this call out to the community and it's for across Grey County. It's not limited in any way to Georgian Bluffs to ask for stories. Ideally stories that span a 30-year time horizon. And as we were just talking about, we know that many of the producers in our area are generational and have been doing this for a very long time. And we've heard in the work that the climate team and other teams have done that, we're seeing shifts in maple syrup tapping. We're seeing shifts in first and last frost significantly. So we're trying to look for those stories that ideally also maybe have a visual tied to them. They don't have to have a visual, but if someone has a family album and can go back and say, oh, here we were tapping the trees for the first time of the season in 1972, that would just be fantastic because they are trying to make the exhibit as visual as possible. It's not exclusive to farmers. It doesn't, maybe it's a picture of a small business with a giant snow pile in front of it, but we do know that farmers are really at the front end of experiencing climate change impacts. So we do anticipate that some of your networks may have some of the best stories to share. So there is an email at the bottom of the correspondence, which we'll also put in the chat. And that's going to be your fastest route to get this information to the people who need it. But certainly you're welcome to send it to any of us here at the county as well, if that's easier for you, or if you want to point other people to us, we will make sure it gets into the hands of the volunteers who are looking for it.
I'm sorry. And Savannah, do you want to add some stuff as well?
I was just going to say, Madam Chair, that we're really excited to host this traveling exhibit. It's hard to find what's next after dinosaurs. We really think this is it. We know people love the weather and it has changed so much and there's so many impacts. So the fact that we can actually partner and tell the stories of what we have seen here and what that means for our sectors, what it means for economic development, what it means for tourism, it's just the perfect opportunity to bring our whole department together, all of our sectors, and tell the story of Grey Roots. So we're looking forward to it. Please spread the word as much as possible so that everyone can participate in this. And we look forward to 2026.
Wonderful. So many of our farmers have made records for years and years. It'd be interesting if there were some local farmers that could share some of their weather records, because that might tell us an interesting story. Might take someone to summarize some of the data, but that could be interesting. Paul, please. Yeah.
Yeah. My mother kept a journal since early 60s. I could imagine what I could find in there. I think one of the things that I could relate to very briefly and others is the snow that we used to get in the early 70s. And Brian might relate to others, the snowbanks that we, and you talk about, I always try to remind people that complain that the road didn't get plowed to noon. We had times we had storms. The roads didn't get plowed for 3 days. Like you were stranded, and stuff like that. So it's, everything in perspective, but, they used to, you see snowbanks that were probably twice the height of a pickup truck, and stuff like that, and just unreal. And probably some of those windswept areas as well. But anyway, it just seemed to be the 70s were, and then I remember a certain time in the 80s, I think 1980, there was hardly any snow, and all that stuff. And anyway, I'm sure lots of albums will, and I'm sure there's a lot of repetitious with regards to snow and stuff like that, but there's been other weather events as well. But, I'm just, the 70s snowbanks were one that sticks out in my mind.
Everyone always says the worst weather happens during Graeber's Farmers Week, so we've got lots of stories to tell too. So, Simon, please.
So if interested, I do have written records going back to the 1950s in my own life. Please get in contact with me, and I'll be glad to share. Because once I die, those things will probably go in the garbage, and there will be no use to anybody. So I will take the freedom at this point and the liberty, Laurie, to come back on your last piece of correspondence about farm succession. I've sat through a fair number of presentations, and all good here and so on. And I'm sure you do remember the time that we talked about death on the family. It was one of the hardest things I ever did. But they certainly, personal testimonies probably are the best to tell people, don't delay this.
Yes, that's right, Simon. Thank you. Okie doke. So if there's no other comments, we'll continue on here. Thanks for everybody sharing today. It's been great chatter, which is great. Thank you. And thanks to Savannah and Linda and Scott. Any other business? Randy, please.
Yeah, just recognizing that our next meeting is not until March, and I know there's a upcoming retirement for someone that's important to this committee and to the overall agriculture community in Grey County. That's before then. So I just want to thank Chair Laurie Smith for chairing this committee over the past 2 years. Your dedication, your commitment to this committee, as well as to the overall Grey Ag Services organization. As you know, it's left a lasting impact for not only the Grey agriculture community, but beyond the Grey Ag community, as we've talked about with your impact in terms of and learnings beyond through the Farmers Week and other services that Grey Ag Services provides. And so just want to thank you for everything you've done for this group and chairing this committee for the last 2 years. And note that on behalf of Grey County staff, we wish you all the best. And hopefully we'll have further, obviously, discussions between now and your retirement, obviously. But as it relates to this committee, just wanted to thank you for chairing this committee over the last 2 years and your participation as part of this group. We definitely appreciated it.
Thanks so much, Randy. It's been a joy to do this. I've enjoyed it thoroughly. Yes, hoping to retire in February once we get Graeber's Farmers Week all wound up. So thank you very much for your kind wishes. Tara, please.
Thank you. And I just wanted to further to Randy's comments, just noting for the committee that with the council term coming to a close in November of 2026, the 4-year appointments on the Ag Advisory Committee will also conclude at the same time. So we do have 2 additional meetings scheduled for this committee in 2026. The first is March 5th and then June 18th follows. And I just wanted to note that for the committee, the meeting plans going forward ahead of our first meeting in 2026.
On that first agenda, we will have chair appointments. Those are done annually. You'll see an item to elect a chair and a vice chair for 2026. And of course, just echoing Randy's comments, and thank you, Chair Lori, on behalf of the Clerk's Department for serving as chair. And you definitely run a very smooth meeting, so that's always appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you for all your help. Wonderful. Paul, you have your hand up? No?
Yep.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm just trying to get the mute button. So I also want to take this opportunity to thank Lori for not only being part of this committee, but all the work you've done over the years. I know you're not leaving 25th Side Road, so I think you can still be involved, and I'll encourage you to do that. And I think you could always also be welcome back to this committee as well. But I will miss the opportunities that I have once in a while at the occasion of council next door coming over and having many long chats with you. So I'm going to have to get your cell phone and have that conversation, I guess, on the phone instead of just walking over and having those occasional. But again, all the best. And I have a feeling you're not going too far, and you still are going to be around. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Paul. Any other business? I have a couple quick items. Yes, Keith?
You're probably going to talk about what I'm going to talk about, so I'll let you go.
Well, I don't know what you're going to talk about. I wanted to talk about the course programs. So the green brochure went out yesterday. So we have 15 amazing courses that Emily has pulled together for the next year. So take a look on the website to see all the great opportunities, all the great things you can learn. So please go to look at the Grey Ag Services website. Courses are running from scandemics to sheep, and there's dairy goat topics, beef topics, dairy topics, gardening, sewing, horses, etc. There's tons of stuff there, so please go there. Also wanted to say one last time, Grey Bruce Farmers Week happens in January. We are running from the 7th to the 12th, starting with Beef Day. You can watch live at the Elmwood Community Center, or you can live stream. So please go to the gbfw.ca website to check out all the great speakers that we have. It should be an excellent week. Keith, what were you going to talk about?
Okay, I was wrong. December 18th, Senator Rob Black is coming to downtown Bogner for the OSCIA AGM. So I'm not sure whether it's full up, Lori, but yeah, I thought we should put a shout out for that too.
Wonderful. Not
very often he would be in our local neck of the woods, so there is details probably on the Grey Ag website about that.
Yeah, just for ease, you can just email me or Emily to get registered. We have to contact the caterer tomorrow with our firm numbers, and we only have about half of what I was anticipating coming to this evening. It begins at 5 o'clock with a gathering time. We have an amazing meal from 5:30 till 6:30. We have a short business portion for soil and crop for half an hour, and then Senator Black will be speaking from 7 till about 8 o'clock. It's a licensed event as well. It's more of a social event versus what we typically do. So it's kind of an experiment. I think it was Carrie's idea that we launch into this pattern. So please register today so that we have you on the list. Thank you, Keith, for that nod. Any other business? Paul?
Just a comment to that. I think you'll have the ghost of Bill Murdoch there as well. Because I remember he talked about Wagner and that bridge that was out for a long time. So I'm sure he'll be there in spirit. So
I'm sure he will be, and hopefully nothing spooky happens while we're having our meeting. No, it'll be an excellent meeting. Any other business? I'm not seeing anything, and it's 11:01. So as Tara already mentioned, next meeting date is Thursday, March 5th, 2026. Again, it is going to be virtual. And if someone could please make a motion to adjourn this meeting. Okay, well, I'll pick Brian because I think I saw his hand up first. We'll get his name on the minutes. Thank you so much for joining us today. Have a very Merry Christmas. Hope to see you all at Grey Bruce Farmers Week and hopefully at some of our courses as well. Enjoy the day.